All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I have some really interesting Washington Commanders draft rumor updates, man. There's a lot going on. A lot of these are just straight up reports. Some of these may not even be rumors. Some of these are things that actually happened, things that people actually said, but I just want to name it rumors because I don't want to act like I'm trying to clickbait anything. Even out of like maybe the 8 things we talk about today, maybe 2 are rumors. I still wanted to make sure I didn't bait anybody. So we got to talk about, first of all, there's a report coming from the draft right now. The LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels is killing the team meetings right now. Also, Washington Commanders head coach Quinn described Jaden Daniels as a game changer, but when he described Drake Maye, he just said athletic. Do we need to read into that further than what it actually is, or is that just, he slipped up and that's all he meant by it? Nothing deeper than that. Also, Washington reporter J.P. Finley made a very bold prediction for the Commanders. We're going to talk about that at the end of the video. Also, Mel Kiper mocked the Washington Commanders to draft Jaden Daniels again, like just a couple of days ago. So where there's smoke, is there fire? Is there some league-wide momentum gaining for Jaden Daniels to the Washington Commanders, number 2 overall in the 2024 NFL Draft? Is Jaden Daniels' interview skills separating him from Drake Maye as quarterback 2? We're going to talk about all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, man. I really appreciate all of y'all for pulling up to all the videos. I've been doing like 2 videos a day, and y'all been making sure y'all supporting all of them, so I really appreciate y'all. I'm not going to waste any more of y'all time. I just want y'all to know to be on the lookout for continued 2 videos a day minimum. I'm trying to get to the point of 3, so stay tuned, because when in doubt, if you haven't checked on Street Scores that day, I have more than likely put another video out. Let's go and get to this one. Let's get it. All right, so first of all, let's talk about this Jaden Daniels situation with him killing these interviews. This is probably the most recent information out of everything else we're talking about today. We're going to go ahead and get this one out the way first. So apparently, quarterback Jaden Daniels has been very impressive in meetings with teams this week, sources say. That was the expectation, but he has continued to solidify himself as a top 3 quarterback. And of course, as Rico of Street Scores, we're going to analyze things. We're going to do deep dives. So we need to figure out, do we need to read deeper into this or not? Because of course, that doesn't automatically mean that no other quarterback is killing the meetings. It doesn't automatically mean that Drake Maye specifically is not, because it seems like it's basically a Jaden Daniels versus Drake Maye fight for who's going to end up getting drafted by the Commanders at this point. Let's just go ahead and establish that now. Caleb Williams will love him. He's my quarterback 1, but I don't think that's very likely. I'm just assuming that the Bears are definitely taking him. There's all of these rumors and betting odds increasing that Justin Fields is going to the Falcons. That just only makes even more sense for the Bears to end up taking Caleb Williams. So a lot of the times when I do these videos, especially when we're talking about draft rumors and what we're going to end up doing with the 2nd overall pick and things like that, it seems like it's pretty much just a 2-headed race between Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye. So that's why whenever we're talking about Jaden Daniels, we're more than likely going to bring up Drake Maye. And when we're talking about Drake Maye, we're also going to potentially bring up Jaden Daniels to compare themselves to each other throughout this entire process. But again, just because Jaden Daniels is killing his interviews doesn't mean that anybody like a Drake Maye is not. That would be a fallacy to jump to those conclusions. But I do find it very interesting that so far, that's the only review we've heard out of any of these top quarterbacks so far. I mean, the only other one is that I've heard that Caleb Williams' dad is probably going to be a problem. Like, some people see him potentially as like another LeVar Ball situation, and maybe that affects his draft stock. Outside of that, the only thing I've heard is that Jaden Daniels is killing his meetings. And one thing I can say at the very least is that Jaden Daniels is for sure killing his interviews, and is widely agreed upon by multiple teams that have interviewed him. And I think that is still very notable. Even if we're not comparing him to other quarterbacks just to isolate himself, I think that's interesting. And I just did video breakdowns about how both Commanders GM Adam Peters and Commanders head coach Quinn have basically been insinuating that interviews may end up being the deciding factor between these top quarterbacks, more specifically Jaden Daniels and Drake Maye, especially between those two. Because with the top guys, they all have great throwing ability, great running ability, some more so than others in certain categories. But at the end of the day, the margins are very thin when we're talking about overall talent between these guys. Like if you had to give these guys like Madden overall ratings, those ratings will be very close when we're just talking about pure natural talent and projection to the NFL level and things like that. And so our GM and our head coach basically alluded to the fact in their interviews a couple of days ago at the Combine that these upcoming interviews with the quarterbacks that apparently have already happened. It seems like from reports I've seen from like Adam Schefter, he's basically hinted to the fact that the Commanders have already interviewed all 6 quarterbacks because that came through with the Josh Harris information about him sitting in on the meetings, which is a video breakdown I already did if you want to go check that out. But basically, GM Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn said that these interviews may end up basically being the tiebreaker between these two very talented quarterbacks. So if Jaden Daniels is killing it, I mean, so far, the only thing we do know, at least according to reports, I mean, of course, like me as in Rico of Street Scores was not physically there to see that Jaden Daniels killed his interview, but we're seeing from reports and sources that Jaden Daniels is doing very well at the very least in his interviews. So now we have to wait and see if Drake Maye is doing just as well, if not better or maybe worse. From videos I've personally seen so far with Drake Maye breaking down film, what I think with Colt McCoy, I think that was, he seems very smart and he has a fun personality that you can easily make the face of a franchise to get fans to want to come back to Commanders games and things like that. Even though I prefer Jaden Daniels over Drake Maye, I'm not going to sit here and downplay Drake Maye like he's not a very talented guy. And also, I feel like based on what I've seen from him so far, just in videos from very far away, that he would be the type of guy that would kill interviews. But we still got to see what we hear from NFL teams. Again, I, as in Rico of Street Scores, would assume that Drake Maye would do really well in these interviews, but we still got to see if he actually does. Whereas we have, even though it's not definitive proof, but we're seeing from sources, we're hearing from sources that Jaden Daniels at the very least killed his. Now Drake Maye, your turn. But it's weird to say that because apparently all of the interviews already happened, and I think it is a little odd that we've only heard about Jaden Daniels' interview, but maybe that is some sort of like agenda being pushed. Maybe this is being put out there on purpose to generate clicks, views, and to get everybody talking. Who knows? Of course, we're just here to deep dive into things, but at the end of the day, like I said, take all of this information with a grain of salt. It's lion season. We won't know who the Commanders want to take until they actually take them April 25th, sometime after 8 p.m. But at the very least, we're going to have some fun and enjoy this ride all the way up to that point. But I just want to keep giving y'all warnings. I know I'm repeating myself, but hey, man, a lot of these things, a lot of these trustworthy reports, you never know. Maybe the Commanders are even lying to these trustworthy reports. Even though they are trustworthy sources, they're people that have the ins and outs, and they have a lot of background relations around the NFL. They're plugged in and all of that type of stuff. What if the Commanders just came out and just straight up lied and said, yeah, Jaden Daniels killed his interview, even though they felt like he didn't, just to get people talking like that? You just never know. None of us are in the minds of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and all of this going on behind the scenes. But of course, again, I'm going to keep reporting everything that I hear so that y'all are just as aware of everything that's going on and what we're hearing so far around the NFL and especially the Commanders as we go through this process. Now, moving on, something that isn't a rumor at all, something that isn't even just a report, it came from Dan Quinn's mouth himself. He gave one-word descriptions of a lot of players. He was on the Junkies radio, and then when he got to Terry McLaurin, he said explosive. He got to Jonathan Allen, he said dominant. Okay. Sam Howell, tough. I mean, you know, that's a compliment, but I don't want to be known as tough when I'm trying to be out here as the franchise quarterback. You know what I'm saying? That's not a real compliment that says, yeah, that's a franchise quarterback right there. Caleb Williams, DC, I see why he went there. That makes a lot of sense to try to avoid any, headliners. And then he got the Drake Maye. He said athletic. Interesting. Something that doesn't necessarily cause headliners, chaos on the internet. Then he got the Jaden Daniels and completely folded everything. Everybody else, he kept it pretty surface, pretty political. I'm gonna find a way to compliment this guy, find some way that this guy relates to the Commanders. I'm gonna keep it political. He gets to Jaden Daniels and calls him a game changer. And you remember when my dog Cam Newton, Westlake GOAT, you know what I'm saying? Shouts out to Westlake over there. Adam Pac-Man Jones, Cam Newton putting the hurting on people out here lately, man. Shouts out Westlake, man. But Cam Newton himself was breaking down what's the difference between a game changer and a game manager. Dan Quinn maybe also agrees with that difference. And if he calls Jaden Daniels a game changer, that's a huge endorsement right there. That's a very big endorsement. Like, not to say, again, just like with the reports that Jaden Daniels is killing interviews, maybe that's not to just, it's fallacy to just assume that Dan Quinn feels like Drake Maye is not a game changer just simply because he called Jaden Daniels one and Drake Maye, he didn't actually call Drake Maye one as well. But man, I mean, to get to Jaden Daniels, you're keeping it political the whole way, and then you call him a game changer? Like, was that on purpose? Or are you trying to throw up smoke screens and then you actually end up taking Drake Maye, and then at the end of everything, you're gonna be like, ha ha, I had you guys fooled. You thought I was taking Jaden Daniels because the diction that I used when describing how much I liked him, it was a little bit stronger in the Jaden Daniels form and way more than like a Drake Maye. Ha ha, I got you. But I mean, that definitely sounds like, man, if I'm a quarterback that wants to get drafted by the Commanders second overall, I would way more prefer to be called the game changer than athletic. Because athletic is part of game changer usually. Like, Drake Maye's compliment is literally a piece of Jaden Daniels', and Jaden Daniels probably encompasses a lot more great traits. So I don't know, Dan Quinn, that was a little weird, man. I'm not gonna lie. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. Even though this isn't even a rumor, this is coming from Dan Quinn himself. Also want to mention the fact that Dan Quinn is not running this draft. It's an Adam Peters thing. So even if Dan Quinn does actually prefer Jaden Daniels over Drake Maye, it doesn't matter if Adam Peters prefers Drake Maye. Let's just go ahead and get that out the way. Just like the whole Josh Harris sitting in the meetings thing video that I just did a whole breakdown on. Make sure you go check that out. I mean, it doesn't really matter who Josh Harris wants. Doesn't necessarily matter who Dan Quinn wants. Yeah, all of these guys can give their opinions, especially like a Cliff Kingsbury, who is our offensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, it's the Adam Peters show. It's the Adam Peters draft. It's the Adam Peters free agency. It's the Washington Adam Peters franchise, basically. So at the end of the day, Dan Quinn can like Jaden Daniels as much as he wants, even potentially over a Drake Maye. We don't even absolutely know for sure if that's the case. But even if it is, at the end of the day, Dan Quinn is not drafting our next quarterback, even if he is the head coach. It is Adam Peters. We got to figure out, we got to start to dive deep into anybody that's great out there that's combing through the internet and finding any little piece of information that we can find. We need y'all on the job to get things like this out of Adam Peters. We need to get Adam Peters on some radio shows and see if we can catch him slipping. But until then, you know, Dan Quinn can love Jaden Daniels as much as he wants. Now, maybe him and Adam Peters on the same page. Who knows? But one thing I do know, though, is that if we end up drafting Jaden Daniels, that media team is definitely going to include that Dan Quinn soundbite, and it's going to hit, man, and I'm going to love it, man. Jaden Daniels, game changer. Like, it's going to be right at the beginning of, like, the montage of his highlights, welcome to the Commanders and things like that. That's going to hit like crazy if that ends up going down like that, man. But, of course, if we end up just drafting Drake Maye, then you could pretty much just go ahead and scrap that whole soundbite, throw it in the trash, act like it never happened, of course. Now, moving on, that boy Mel Kiper just did another mock draft as of, oh, this was yesterday, as in Wednesday, February 28th. Man, again, I've been making so many videos. I've been so busy and just all over the place that this felt like it was literally 2-3 days ago when I saw this. There's no way that was just yesterday. That's like actually like mind-blowing to me, right? That was yesterday when he posted that. There's no way. Nah, I'm really stuck on that. But either way, Mel Kiper, of course, ESPN's famous mock drafter, draft analyst, and things like that. He did another mock draft for the first round. He drafted Jaden Daniels to the Washington Commanders last time, and he did so again as of yesterday. So I don't know if he's hearing things behind the scenes, if what he's hearing from the Commanders, if rumors, whispers around the NFL from top executives and things like that, why he's choosing to pick Jaden Daniels to us again as of yesterday. Since these interviews have happened, this may have come out before the interviews, maybe slightly before, may have come out after the interviews, and maybe Mel Kiper received some information where he was like, all right, sounds like Jaden Daniels to Commanders, in my opinion, as in Mel Kiper. We'll see. What he said about it, though, I'm sticking with Daniels here over Drake Maye from North Carolina. Though it's tight, several NFL teams have Maye over Daniels on their boards 2 months out from the start of round 1. I love Daniels' fit with new Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, who will run a wide open offense and put his quarterback in the best position to succeed. Washington already has 2 really good and young wideouts in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, so Daniels and Kingsbury would be able to start quickly. Daniels made a massive leap during his time at LSU, developing into a top tier passer and runner. I can't wait to watch him at the next level. And the thing I want to go back to and emphasize is that from what he's hearing is that most teams feel like Drake Maye is the better prospect. But once again, just like I did a full mock draft look around all of the internet, basically, we looked at CBS, ESPN, Fox Sports, NBC, the 33rd team, anywhere we could find a mock draft for the Commanders within the past couple of months. I did that like last week. And like the general theme that I kept noticing that probably occurred the most out of any other ones is that a lot of people felt like Drake may be the better quarterback, but Jaden Daniels was the better fit. And that's the same thing that Mel Kiper said here. And maybe there's some serious merit to that. Maybe potentially that may end up going down like that. The Commanders drafting Jaden Daniels more so just because they prefer a Jaden Daniels more so than they feel like Jaden Daniels is necessarily just the best all-around overall quarterback. I can see that though. Because of like, I feel like on one end, offensive coordinators are lazy. And a lot of people don't even want to be tasked with figuring out how to use Jaden Daniels' legs to the best of their abilities. I feel like a lot of coordinators may be lazy and just feel like Drake Maye is the easier fit, the guy with the big arm that has enough mobility. I feel like his mobility is underrated, first of all. Let's get that out the way. I prefer Jaden Daniels, but Drake Maye is more athletic than a lot of people give him credit for. But out of the way, I can see how Drake Maye is the more compatible quarterback to like more NFL offenses. Again, I feel like more so than anything else is just offensive coordinators being lazy and not even wanting to deal with trying to figure out how to utilize Jaden Daniels' legs and play styles. They just want to run their regular NFL offense and then ask Drake Maye to potentially adjust to that rather than the other way around, which already feels like we're off to a bad start. So basically, I'm saying I can see why more NFL teams are probably higher on Drake Maye, just because if they imagine Drake Maye in their offense, it's an easier fit for them for more teams and offensive schemes out of the NFL. But I can also see where with the Cliff Kingsbury offense, what he did with Kyler Murray and Pat Mahomes and guys like that, why Jaden Daniels would be the better fit for us, regardless of who's actually the better quarterback when you're just isolating them, keeping them in a vacuum separate from whatever potential offense they land in. I can see it. Speaking of Jaden Daniels' love, there's a report, a strong report, that Patriots head coach, well, ex-head coach Bill Belichick loved Jaden Daniels and had him at the top of his draft board above everybody else, above Marvin Harrison Jr., above Caleb Williams, and more specifically, above a Drake Maye. So if the Patriots still had Bill Belichick as their head coach, maybe they would be trying to do whatever it takes to get up to number one past us to get that pick from the Bears and take Jaden Daniels. Now, what's interesting is that with as much love as Bill Belichick had for Jaden Daniels, does Gerard Mayo, the new Patriots head coach, have that much love? Like, does he follow the Bill Belichick plan and they find a way to trade up to get Jaden Daniels above us? Because if the Patriots feel that way, do you feel like the Commanders may also feel that way as well? The Patriots probably aren't the only team that have Jaden Daniels as their number one quarterback, even above a Caleb Williams. And I think that's just really interesting because it kind of opens the floodgates. A lot of people feel like, especially from the past couple of months. Now, granted, these last couple of weeks, things have been changing a little bit, but ever since the season ended, it's been Caleb Williams number one, Drake Maye number two, and then we figure it out after that. Now, lately, you've been seeing Jaden Daniels as like the automatic QB3 at worst, and then a lot of people actually have Jaden Daniels at number two, and a couple of like analysts have Jaden Daniels their quarterback one. This is the first time we've heard like a top NFL executive, ex-head coach that like recently ex-head coach was just the head coach of a team just as of last year say that Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the draft, which again opens up the floodgates to where maybe some other teams feel like that. And maybe there's the potential that the Commanders feel like that. Dan Quinn, from what we heard, again, it sounds like he feels like that. But again, it doesn't really matter if Adam Peters doesn't. But maybe Adam Peters does. You have absolutely no idea. Now, moving on to the next section of this video. The same Jeff guy that we talked about earlier that reported that Jaden Daniels has been very impressive in his meetings with teams this week, and basically that he solidified himself as a top three quarterback and maybe even as quarterback two in a lot of teams' eyes, maybe even quarterback one. The same guy that reported that earlier today at 5 p.m. As of earlier today at 12 p.m., he tweeted that based off of combine intel, still a long way to go, my early mock draft would be Bears, Caleb Williams, Commanders, Drake Maye, Patriots, Jaden Daniels. So the Patriots will end up getting their guy anyway, regardless, just because apparently from what he's hearing behind the scenes from top executives, the same sources that he has saying that Jaden Daniels is killing his interviews, That tweet came after this tweet, but still at 12 p.m., 4 hours before the Jaden Daniels tweet, he said, based on what he's hearing while being at the combine, from talking to people, whispers, reports, rumors, and things like that, from shaking hands with NFL executive scouts, it seems like if he had to make a prediction today, that the Commanders are probably leaning more towards a Drake Maye. And I feel like that does hold a little bit of weight. That's very interesting. Then he also went on to say that the Cardinals will be open for business with teams looking to move up to number 4, and that the Cardinals will basically just be like, yeah, I might as well just go ahead and trade back, because you know, maybe they don't like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Olufashanu or Joe Alt as much as I thought they would. I thought they would be very happy to get either one of those guys. But then again, I can see the logic to where, like, well, if you love 3 guys and then you're at number 4, which is now technically the first pick because the other ones have already been solidified, if you move back at worst 2-3 spots, at least one of those guys should still be there if you love all of them. So I can see the logic there. But of course, the most notable part for the Commander side of things is that based on the information that he's hearing, again, the same source that said Jaden Daniels is killing his interviews said 4 hours before he reported that Drake Maye would be his guess for the Commanders pick number 2 overall right now. And hey, man, I would not be surprised. Again, I prefer Jaden Daniels, but I would be very happy to get Drake Maye as well. I'm very happy with either one, and I'm just really curious. I'm like brainstorming, like, what is he hearing behind the scenes that makes him think it's Drake Maye? Where is he getting this intel from? Is he getting this from like a scout or a top executive that talked to like a Commander scout? Like, is there a middleman that doesn't include him? Like, where is he getting this information? Is he hearing it in the form of the Commanders directly saying that we prefer Drake Maye so far? Or is he just going behind the scenes and being like, well, most people I ask seem to think that Drake Maye is better, so by that logic, maybe the Commanders do as well. Like, we just don't know where this report is coming from here. The Jaden Daniels one is just more direct. He's killing interviews. That's all we know, even though there's still the mystery as to whether any other quarterback is killing their interviews. This one, he didn't say directly that the Commanders prefer Drake Maye. He just said if he had to guess today, it would be Drake Maye. We'll see how this goes, though. Again, we have until April 25th. This is going to be a long ride. Nobody will know, I believe, until literally we end up taking the guy that we take at 8 p.m. And let's just, I feel like we've already solidified the fact that we're taking quarterback. Josh Harris is there for the meetings, man. We're taking quarterback number 2 overall. I really appreciate Sam Howell. Now, if anything, with Sam Howell, the only debate we're having is, should we keep him as a backup or should we trade him away for potentially what a lot of reports are saying is like a 3rd round pick, which is crazy. That's more value than I thought we would get for him. So that's really the only debate when it comes to Sam Howell. We're taking quarterback at number 2 overall. I'm willing to bet a lot of money on that, but we'll see. We thought Ben Johnson was in the bag, and we saw how that went, so who knows at this point, but we'll see. Then lastly, the last and final thing we're going to talk about in this video is JP Finley on his podcast said that he's starting to believe that Drake Maye is more of the pick than Jaden Daniels for the Washington Commanders. And that's very interesting because, first of all, the way he worded this, starting to believe, like, originally, like before this whole combine process, because he tweeted this yesterday at 9 p.m. So before this whole combine process, before all of these interviews have started going down, maybe he heard something from the interviews. I don't know. Maybe he's hearing some intel directly from the combine. Again, this is a Washington Commanders reporter right here. And he said that he's starting to believe that Drake Maye is the guy. Most people assumed that it would be Drake Maye since a couple of months ago. He's saying that now, based on him saying he's starting to hear is Drake Maye, maybe there's gaining momentum towards Drake Maye's side as of late. Like, maybe something is happening behind the scenes that we don't know about, where Drake Maye is starting to separate himself from Jaden Daniels, even though neither of those guys are participating in the combine anyway, other than interviews, basically. So I'm really interested in knowing, like, what's going on behind the scenes. What is going on with the Jeff guy that predicted in his mock draft that the Commanders would take Drake Maye based on what he's hearing at the combine? And what does JP Finley hear from behind the scenes as a Commanders reporter that I believe is there in Indianapolis and hearing all the whispers behind the scenes and things like that? What is he hearing and seeing right now that has him believing that Drake Maye is gaining some momentum as well? So there go 2 fairly trustworthy sources right there as of today predicting Drake Maye over Jaden Daniels being the pick. We'll see how this goes. And of course, I just want to update y'all on the fact I didn't do like a separate video like I did for Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, but it has been reported that Drake Maye has not only met with the Commanders, but he's basically meeting with the same exact list of teams that Jaden Daniels met with, because Ian Rappaport updated everybody on the teams that Jaden Daniels spent yesterday meeting with, and well, the past couple of days, and it was the Bears, Commanders, Vikings, Jets, Giants, Patriots, Raiders, Seahawks, and Saints. He gave that update yesterday, as in February 28th. And then he added later on in the same day, yesterday, February 28th, that he wanted to add the Falcons. And then he also said UNC quarterback Drake Maye is meeting with essentially the same team. So it may not be exactly the same amount of teams, the same exact teams and things like that, but it's generally the same teams interviewing both guys. So just to go ahead and give y'all that update, Drake Maye has, of course, not only met with the Commanders, but he's meeting with a lot of these other teams that potentially are looking for the quarterback market. So either way, I feel like no matter what, even if we don't take Drake Maye number 2 overall, somebody's going to take him number 3 overall. Even if it's not the Patriots, maybe the Patriots trade back and somebody else trades up to get him. But I'm assuming that it's going to be Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake Maye. Whatever order getting taken within the top 3 picks is definitely shaping up that way, especially with all of this interest coming from all of these different teams, especially some of these teams that are like in the middle of the draft. They got to trade up very far and give up ridiculous value to get them. But I guess maybe they're just doing their due diligence. Who knows? But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content, man. I'm super excited. I mean, we have so much news coming out that I can't even keep up. I'm doing 2 videos a day trying to get to 3, and I'm not even sure if 3 videos a day is enough because I have so many videos and ideas that I'm like, I'm ready to do this one, and then some other important information comes out, and then everything else just takes the back burner and gets pushed back. So just stay tuned, man. It's never a problem of running out of content and things to talk about. It's literally just finding the time to do it. So stay patient with me. I really appreciate y'all. Leave a like on the way out, and of course let me know in the comment section how you feel about all of this. If you had to guess right now, who would be your pick for the Commanders number 2 overall? Like, I want 2 separate answers. Who do you prefer the Commanders to pick 2nd overall? And if you had to guess today, based on what we're hearing, the information that I've given you so far, who would you guess the Commanders will take number 2 overall once April 25th comes? I believe the draft starts at 8 p.m. So even though the Bears probably already know what they're going to do right now, they're still going to let that clock run. People always do it. They milk it. So we probably won't know who we're drafting at quarterback until April 25th at like 8:15 p.m. or something like that. 8:20. You never know. 8:30 even, with all of the speeches that go on beforehand, especially from Roger Goodell and friends and things like that. So let me know 2 different answers, who you want the Commanders to take 2nd overall, who you guess they'll take 2nd overall right now, because I'm conflicted. It's all over the place right now. Y'all already know I prefer Jaden Daniels, but I don't know. Some of this Drake Maye news is very intriguing. We'll see. But again, I really appreciate y'all. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.